regardless of beliefs and differences. God commands us to do everything in love. COVID-19 has brought about a circumstance that demands love, peace, and unity to inspire us towards hope for a better and brighter future. At times, life relationships can get challenging. Times of stress can strain relationships, and we end up hurting each other and destroying the love, peace, and unity we have worked so hard to achieve. Satan's goal is to kill, steal, and destroy our love, peace, and unity. Bahamians, now is the time to live up to our motto. We must move forward, upward, and onward in the spirit of togetherness. Let's fight together towards living in peace, love, and unity. God has given us the ability to be patient, kind, and loving through actions and words. If we accept the Bahamas is a Christian nation, as the preambles of our Constitution express, we must also adopt biblical scriptures that remind us that it is our responsibility as Christians to lead the way for love, peace, and unity among all nations and people. 1 Corinthians chapter 1 and verse 10 from the King James Version. Now, I beseech you, brethren, by the name of our Lord Jesus Christ, that you all speak with the same thing, and that there be no divisions among you, but that you be perfectly joined together in the same mind and in the same judgment. Acts 4 and 38, Acts 4 and 32, all believers were one in heart and mind. No one claimed that any of their possessions was their own, but they shared everything they had. Philippians 2 through verse 3. Then make my joy complete by being like-minded, having the same love, being one in spirit of one mind. Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, and value others above yourselves. Ephesians 4, 1 and 6. As a prisoner for the Lord, then I urge you to live a life worthy of the calling you have received. Be completely humble and gentle. Be patient, bearing with one another. The time to live, bearing one another in love. Make every effort to keep unity of the Spirit through the bond of peace. There is one body, one Spirit, just as you were called to one hope when you were called, one Lord, one faith, one baptism, one God, and one Father of all, who is over all and through all and in all. Finally, 2 Corinthians 13 and verse 11. Finally, brothers and sisters, rejoice, strive for full restoration, encourage one another, be of one mind, live in peace, and the God of love and peace will be with you. Let us pray the Lord's Prayer. Our Father,
who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven.
give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
Parliamentary, Marvin Dane, Frankie Campbell, Nicio Diagla, Michael Pintard, Darren Henfield, Jamal Ferreira, Lanisha Rowe, Ranville Rowe, Ellsworth Johnson, Philip Davis, Vaughn Miller, Patricia Parker Edgecombe, Aaron Lewis, Carlton Bolag, James Albrecht, Travis Robinson, Adrian Gibson, Donald Saunders, Frederick McAlpine, Hank Johnson, Mark Hume, Michael Folks, Miriam Reckley Emmanuel, Nick Shipman, Ruben Ramming, Ricky Mackey, Shannon Dawn Cartwright, Chanel Ferguson, Glennis Hannah Martin, Price Belfort, Chester Cooper.
Honorable members, just wish to bring to your attention that as a consequence of the resurgence of the coronavirus within our nation, we are adopting the position that we previously held with respect to the attendance of members to Parliament. We are doing our best to accommodate as many members as possible. But we understand that there are other members who are wanting to be in chambers but are unable to. So those members who indicate their desire to be in chambers will be deemed to be present and will be marked present during this period. I just also want to notify this Parliament that the Commission, the Constituency Commission, I've received the nominations from the Prime Minister, the Leader of the Official Opposition, and the Chief Justice. Those names will then be forwarded to the Governor General pursuant to the Constitution for the formal appointment. Thereafter, the Commission will begin its work. Introduction and swearing in of new members. Those names will be announced when those persons are formally appointed by the Governor General. I don't want to preempt. Introduction and swearing in of new members. Laying of documents by ministers. The chair recognizes the honorable member for Bamboo Town.
Mr. Speaker, we will not be laying any documents at this point, but we do have some documents that must be laid in Parliament today. And so we're seeking, even though we're going to move forward on the agenda, we need to decide opposite's concurrence that once those documents arrive, that we're able to go back on the agenda so that we can table them. They're not here at this point in time. And so we need to decide opposites concurrence when they do arrive for us to be able to go back on the agenda. I know that I've already spoken to the leader. And so he hadn't acceded to it as yet. And so we did. Yeah. So we Mr. Speaker.
There's no objection done by the official opposition.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So when they arrive, when we're done with the debate, we'll go back on the agenda, Mr. Speaker, so that we can table those documents. Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you and good morning. Statements and communications by ministers. The chair recognizes the honorable member for Killarney.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Speaker, I have a brief communication to make. Speaker, we face the greatest challenge today the Bahamas has ever faced, and the greatest challenge modern mankind and society has faced. However, with respect to the pandemic, our success today, the success that we have up to this particular point in time, and success moving forward, has depended solely on the professionalism and the excellent work done by the health team, the cooperation by the Bahamian people, and the excellent tracing and tracking of individuals who may have been exposed or infected, done by our health professionals, and of course the communication in terms of keeping the Bahamian people up to date. But Mr. Speaker, if we are to remain in such a position, then we must always remain on top, on the forefront of the situation. We must continue to be proactive as opposed to be reactive. I'm not here to blame anyone, and no one should be blamed. The virus is here, it's not going anywhere, and we must deal with it, and we must always try to remain in front of it. We would have put forth many orders, and these are not orders that we would have liked to do, but these orders were brought forth to save lives in the best interest of the public health sector and the best interest of the Bahamian people. Yesterday, Mr. Speaker, I made an announcement that we were locking the borders in terms of flights and crafts coming from Grand Bahama to other parts of the Bahamas. And I've been advised that immediately after such an order, there were boats literally lined up at Grand Bahama, especially at the East Coast, East section, East End, that were moving throughout the family of islands, and also attempting to move to the Bahamas, to New Providence. As a result of that, we were forced, with health concurrence, to give orders to the Port Authority to ensure that no movements of vessels from Grand Bahama at this particular time to the other family islands and New Providence. Mr. Speaker, I've also been informed that there were excess passenger load of individuals who wanted to come to New Providence, and as a result of that, the health system was essentially overwhelmed. The concerns the health professionals had at that time, that individuals, because of the excess numbers of individuals being brought to the capital, many of them would have been lost in the system and subsequently migrate and permeate into the society and throughout the communities, I should say. And some could have possibly been positive, which could have placed health in a difficult situation in terms of tracking and monitoring. As a result of that, Mr. Speaker, the matter was discussed with health, and an immediate decision was made to try and obtain as many accommodations as possible, and all individuals traveling from Grand Bahama would have been taken to such facility as a temporary quarantine measure, so that health could have done their work in terms of determining where individuals had to be located, making determination to ensure that no individuals were infected. And this was all, Mr. Speaker, to prevent any form of infection moving out within the community. Obviously, Mr. Speaker, this would have caused great stress and duress and inconvenience for many Bahamians, because they would not have known that such a measure had been taken. But I want to assure them that such a measure was taken to ensure the safety not only of themselves, would ensure the safety and the survival of the entire Bahamas and the Bahamian economy. And therefore, for the inconvenience, I would like to apologize to those Bahamians who were definitely inconvenienced in that some may have had accommodations waiting for them, and they too would have been placed in such temporary facilities until proper health investigation was completed. But this was done, Mr. Speaker, in the interest of those individuals and in the interest of society to ensure that there were no spread within our society. Mr. Speaker, it's important to note that if we are not proactive and if we were at any point in time to fall behind, then we can run into grave, serious situations in that our medical personnel would have eventually become burnt out and unable to function. Our health sector could have possibly run into the possibility of meltdown and subsequent problems that I would have discussed previously. And Mr. Speaker, we could have had episodes of rampant infection. We would not see it today, Mr. Speaker. We would have continued moving around happily, socializing, etc. Some not following orders, others following orders. And we would have not seen it today. However, 14 days from today, we would see the results of today. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, the movement was to avoid what could be seen 14 days from today after the incubation period is completed. And we could have had severe spread throughout the province, throughout the Family Islands, as we know that individuals were moving through the Family Islands. And we could have had meltdown of our infrastructure. And therefore, I urge Bahamians that they truly love their Bahamas, that they must continue to follow the health orders. They must continue to wear masks, proper sanitation, social distance, avoid parties, avoid socializing, avoid large gatherings, Mr. Speaker, because if they don't, we won't see the effects until 14 days from today. So what we do today, Mr. Speaker, our discipline, our performance, our not socializing, and our usage of sanitation today, how we act today, we will see the results in 14 days. And if the result is negative in 14 days, Mr. Speaker, it will be extremely difficult to catch up. The Minister of Health tomorrow will give a proper communication to the health status today and a proper communication of what would have happened, the number of passengers, etc., and the way forward. And again, I want to thank those Bahamians who have cooperated. Again, I apologize to those Bahamians who were inconvenienced, but that was a temporary inconvenience to avoid what could possibly happen 14 days from today. Mr. Speaker, we were trying to look forward to, in the best interest of the nation. And the Minister of Health would deal with that matter completely. Mr. Speaker, the only thing I would say to the Bahamian populace is that if we continue to work together, the next 14 days, Mr. Speaker, would determine the outcome and the future of the Bahamas. If we cooperate, we remain disciplined, we wear face masks, we sanitize our hands, we avoid social gathering, we avoid allowing strangers into your home, you avoid parties, you avoid large events. If you do this, then we would be fine. The health professionals would be able to cope with the tracking and the tracing. If, on the other hand, Mr. Speaker, if we are not disciplined at this point in time, because we must remember that there's impending, at this particular time, there's impending community spread in Grand Bahama. So many of those individuals who have traveled here, if they too are not disciplined, we will see the results in 14 days. So I beg all Bahamians all vehemently, because over the next 14 days, they are to remain disciplined and follow all the health instructions. Because if they don't, 14 days from the day, we will see the results, and it will not be pretty, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, there are many, I only want to say that there are many who out there feel that they could have done a better job in 2022 to being populist to make that determination. And whatever their outcome is, we accept. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Further statements? Thank you. He was reading. Honorable Member Pokalani, do you have a written communication? Do you have a written communication? Oh, okay. The chair recognizes the Honorable Member for South Beach.
May it please the Honorable Speaker. Grace and peace of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, the love of God and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with each and every one of you. And the church say, Amen. Lord have mercy. Amen. Mr. Speaker, as the world grapples with trepidation and uncertainty of the impact of COVID-19, the Ministry of Education continues the daunting task of educating our children amid this global pandemic. You will remember so on March 17th of this year, when school buildings across the country were closed, the Ministry of Education expanded its already functioning virtual network platform and transitioned into 100% online education and instruction. The start of this communication, sir, may I repeat what has already been announced by the Ministry of Education. Firstly, due to the spike in COVID-19 cases locally and the recent lockdown of the island of Grand Bahama, the Ministry of Education, in an effort to ensure the safety and well-being of all concerned, to protect the integrity of national exams, has suspended the 2020 sitting of the Bahamas Junior Certificate and the Bahamas General Certificate of Secondary Education examinations effective immediately. Please note, sir, this is a suspension, not a cancellation. It is imperative, therefore, that all examination candidates continue their preparation for their exams. Parents, students, and all others are advised that this suspension is not a pass to relax efforts towards their exam preparation. These crucial exams, which serve as substantial credentials for our students, will be administered as soon as clearance is given by the competent authority. Secondly, sir, public schools, Commonwealth of the Bahamas, will reopen on Monday, September 21st, 2020, at the usual time. Its plans are centered around that date. The ministry will continue to monitor the developments of COVID-19 and will adjust accordingly. Parents of students in private schools are asked to contact their respective schools to ascertain the opening of that school come September. Mr. Speaker, over the past few months, the Ministry and Department of Education, after rigorous consultation with international and local education stakeholders and public health officials, have conceived and designed the best strategies for the reopening of schools. It is important to state here, sir, that in all of our considerations, we are and will continue to be guided by the advice from the public health officials and educational stakeholders and what is in the best interest of our students and staff. The health and safety of everyone associated with education is paramount. In this present, the priority, therefore, is to minimize the risk of direct infection of COVID-19 as teaching and learning continue, regardless of the path that we choose. After rigorous consultation, the ministry has designed 3 instructional models from our intensive deliberations, namely face-to-face, the hybrid or blended learning model, or purely online. Please note that there will be at times, even concurrently, a blend of these models in a particular school. Because while a particular model may dominate the instructional practice for a school, it is likely that some or all schools will use a combination of these models at a given time. Let me be clear, Mr. Speaker. The Bahamas is an archipelago. Many schools in different districts and different environments operate differently, though under the same rubric of regulations by the Ministry of Education. Therefore, one size does not fit all. What works best in one scenario may not be best for another. The ideal arrangement is for our children to be engaged in face-to-face instruction every day and all day, especially those in the pre-primary, the primary, and even the middle years, but for all of our students. Face-to-face model guarantees their most effective social, emotional, intellectual, physical, cultural, and spiritual development. It is the least disruptive to the established routine of our students, parents, and our instructional leaders. It is easier to monitor and evaluate the instructional process, and it provides a comfort of normalcy. It is possible, for instance, Mr. Speaker, that the youthful Rogers Primary School in Deep Creek, South Andros, with an enrollment of less than 100 students, would be able to engage the face-to-face model throughout the day, every day, for the school year. As I said earlier, in some schools, face-to-face will work. In others, it will not. For instance, in schools with larger student population and with the necessity of observing all health protocols, face-to-face for all students at the same time cannot work. We simply do not have the space to accommodate the total student body at one time. If the spread of the virus abates, we will be able to proceed with the entire student body attending the school campus every day for all days. However, no matter what we do, sir, the required health and safety standards will be rigidly observed and enforced. There will be the wearing of masks for children where appropriate, physical distance with a classroom capacity of 20 square feet per student, staggered lunch times, the cancellation of general assemblies where the crowds gather, temperature checks, the utilization of multiple entry and exit points on campuses, and the engagement of buses and other transport vehicles to ferry students to and from campuses. We also recognize, sir, that some of our educators who have pre-existing comorbidities and who may not be able for face-to-face instruction in the midst of COVID-19 would have to continue to utilize our online platform to assist with delivery instruction. Additionally, we will have to redeploy some of our teachers according to their specialized skills in order to meet needs in certain specialized areas. And Mr. Speaker, while face-to-face is the most ideal situation, unless our Heavenly Father grants us a supernatural miracle, it is highly unlikely that we will be able to proceed with this model throughout most of our schools. Our second option is a fully online learning model. In this model, students remain away from the school's campus and the entire instruction takes place online, in home or elsewhere, under the supervision of their parents or other suitably qualified adults. Please note that parents have the right to choose any of the models that we have outlined for their children. If they choose the online model, they would have essentially chosen to school their children at home, and in such a case, will be required to register their child with the homeschooling unit of the Ministry of Education. They can go online to the ministry's webpage, come by or call the ministry for information how they may do this. May I at this time, sir, please remind parents that the law states in Section 23 of the Education Act, I quote, "It shall be the duty of parents of every child of compulsory school age to cause him or her to receive full-time education suitable to his age, ability, and aptitude by regular attendance at school or otherwise." End quote. The advantages of the online model are that there is minimal risk to the spread of COVID-19 virus, along with the provision of flexible learning environment, which allows students to review the lessons at their own pace. Additionally, the Ministry of Education already operates a virtual school, expanding that capacity to include the entire student population. While more students can be accommodated in a virtual classroom or virtual school, we are aware that this is not the most ideal learning option for our pre-primary, lower primary, or special education students. We further recognize that between 9 a.m. and 3 p.m., Monday to Friday, our schools provide safe places for many of our children. With online learning, that duty of care shifts to the home or others and must be well managed if learning is to be successfully carried out. We further recognize that some parents or guardians are not equipped to assist students as needed, and some students are simply unable to self-regulate. This in mind, we invite our community stakeholders to consider possible providing flexible hours for our parents and guardians so that they would be in a better position to spend more time with their students if they should choose the online option. The third option, Mr. Speaker, is the hybrid model. So these, sir, would be the options. As you would see, sir, there is the face-to-face, there is the online, or a blend of the two. This option combines face-to-face instruction with online learning. A hybrid model decreases the number of students on the campus each day by moving some of the instruction online to an alternate day schedule. Those students who are online may remain at home or attend a care center on that day. A care center that will be fully equipped, fully manned, and properly supervised. A schedule has been worked out, Mr. Speaker, where on any given day, no more than 2/3 of the school's population will be on campus in this model. In this one, every student will attend school a minimum of 3 days per week. The other 2 days will be online, at home, or in a care center. Mr. Speaker, there are strategies purposefully outlined for each day. And again, hybrid learning lends itself to individualized learning, opportunities for learning on demand, and a greater partnership between home and school. Ongoing support will be provided for parents to assist their children in a hybrid environment. The 3 days that students engage in a face-to-face are allotted for the delivery of content where the teacher presents the new information or new concepts, differentiated instruction where the teacher would assign tasks to students according to their needs, and guided practice where the teacher gives hands and directions to reinforce the concepts that are taught. Additionally, there will be assessments where students would be evaluated in person to ensure that they truly have mastered the content. On the days when the students are online or not on the campus, they will be taught virtually. This day, the first will be designed with individual instruction while the students complete assigned task. On the other day, which is allotted as online enrichment, on this day, the teachers would assign tasks and projects to students to show what they have accomplished. Mr. Speaker, please note that there are challenges with every single model. There are benefits and there are disadvantages which cannot be avoided, no matter the model that is chosen. For some, online is perfect. For others, hybrid works well. Despite its disadvantages, for all others, it would be most ideal for face-to-face, but in most situations, that simply isn't possible. The key here, Mr. Speaker, is this. School starts on September the 21st at the usual time. The ministry will make every effort to meet the needs of the students. However, as I have said over and repeatedly, everyone must get involved. Education is everyone's business. Parents, churches, civil society, and the society at large. As in the case with each of these models, there will be some adjustments that must be made. In, for instance, the hybrid model, we realize that some disadvantages may be that there are limited access to devices and connectivity for our students, or less supervision or management while students are away from the campus, because parents and students may be inexperienced in the virtual learning platform, or simply the cost of making these adjustments. While these challenges do exist, Mr. Speaker, we have sought viable solutions for each. And as we continue to reiterate, the ministry constantly encourages private-public partnerships for technologies and connectivity. We have begun the engagement of community partners such as churches in securing appropriate and approved spaces, properly equipped, properly managed, internet and Wi-Fi capable to be used as care centers for students while away from school. Again, parents of students online on the alternate days may choose to keep them at home or to transport them to a care center the same hours of the regular school, a care center which will be in the vicinity of the regular school, so that there is little disruption in the travel for the student. There, the student in the care center, in the online environment, must bring his or her own device. We are also inviting our community partners, particularly our churches and civic groups, to consider using their meeting rooms to provide alternate safe learning spaces for the students in their community during time away from the traditional classroom. As an alternative to working from home, some students may also seek access in one of our public libraries. All of our libraries will be offering free Wi-Fi services to our student body. And while all of our public libraries will be available, we recognize that physical or social distancing protocols will severely limit their capacity. And we believe that community safe spaces could provide an additional place for our students to settle down in a managed environment and engage the virtual learning platform. Mr. Speaker, medical professionals throughout the world have indicated that COVID-19 will most likely be a part of our reality for the foreseeable future. Accepting this reality, the Ministry of Education is strengthening its public-private partnerships to ensure that our students have the necessary devices and Wi-Fi connectivity to fully participate in an online mode of learning. Technology is obviously an integral part of the 21st century educational experience. Against this backdrop, the ministry appeals to parents to become more active and involved in their children's education. This COVID-19 has turned the world upside down, yet we press on. And as preparation for the upcoming school year, the ministry urges every parent of students within the public and private systems to ensure that your child is supplied with a tablet or a device that can be used for virtual learning. We wish to stress emphatically that acquiring such a device must be the first priority with regards to supplies needed for schools. As we previously indicated, the ministry is working with its stakeholder partners in assisting in bringing down the price of such devices and advising parents where they may be available. As was previously announced in this honorable House, sir, the ministry has a census of those who may need a device and will provide one on a loan basis for them. Details will be provided as to where parents may purchase devices for their children. And it's important, sir, that as I speak to you, it is approximately 2 months from the start of school, 8 weeks. Starts on September the 21st, 2020, the usual time. Though plans again are centered around that date, the ministry must continue to monitor the developments of COVID-19. Based on the current outlook, the ministry has decided that it would be better or not probably in the best interest of our staff and students to begin the new school year by adopting 100% remote or online learning. However, as we continue to monitor the status of health conditions over a period of time, if circumstances permit, we do intend that by October 5th, there may be a possible transition from remote instruction to hybrid or blended model of learning. I say again, however, as we monitor the status of health conditions over a period of time, if circumstances permit, by October 5th, there may be a possible transition from remote instruction to hybrid or blended model of learning. Sir, I state again, one size does not fit all. Mr. Speaker, the ministry's transition to virtual education in March of this year prompted a desire in a number of parents to explore the dynamics of homeschooling. As the ministry is the main provider of education in the Bahamas, it has made provisions for the regulation of homeschooling since 2015. As such, parents who view this mode of education as feasible for their children are encouraged to pursue this option. However, parents must be certain that this option will be effective based on the needs of their children. I wish also to advise this honorable House and the Bahamian people that in the preparation and the operation of schools commencement this year, there will be robust and carefully crafted procedures for the beginning and the operation of school. Online training sessions for all connected with the school system will be conducted over the next 8 weeks. Parents and students will be invited to register to take free courses online to assist with their ability to negotiate the online environment. The ministry will also provide training lessons in the first 2 weeks of September for all educators, again, online. And all staff, especially custodial staff, will be trained in the methodology and protocols of maintaining a safe and healthy campus environment. Staff, students, and visitors on school campuses will undergo, upon entry, safety checks, including temperature checks and ensuring that individuals are wearing masks or face shields. May I assure the public, Mr. Speaker, that protocols are now in place in the event that students or staff appear to be ill. Meanwhile, the intention is to have at least one nurse stationed at each school. All classrooms will be in compliance with social distancing protocols. Students will be engaged in daily training, awareness, and sensitivity rituals so that they are kept abreast of current information, reminded of health and safety protocols, and encouraged to be sensitive to others. Mr. Speaker, some may question whether it is possible for students to comply with social distancing protocols. In an effort to reinforce these measures, security officers and school administrators will monitor all students in this regard. In terms of the face-to-face instruction, sir, and the maintaining of classroom spaces, you will see that every child will be secured in a 20-foot squared space for the benefit of their safety. In the instance of remote learning, Mr. Speaker, in addition to those online circumstances, as well as the situation where students may be at home, these will be provided for the student who can access them, whether public or private schools, at their leisure. I know you may say, as an example of the hybrid learning, Mr. Speaker, you will notice that students who will attend school in the green will attend school 3 days and will be online in a remote center 2 days. All students will, according to our schedule, attend schools for those 3 days. All students. We will just simply rotate them. In the case of, say, grades, primary school, on a given day, grades 1, 3, and 6 may attend. The others in a remote, another day, grades 2, 4, and 5 will attend. In terms of movement on campus, a clear plan of action is being devised to put in place to direct students' movement while on campus. This includes one-way movements on stairwells, entrances, and exits. Additionally, staggered breaks will be implemented to facilitate safe movement on the campus. Mr. Speaker, despite the uncertainty caused by this virus, the health and safety of our students and staff, again, remain our #1 priority. We believe that our plans provide clear guidance, informed by the best medical advice. And we will remain open to continuous monitoring and taking active steps to ensure that all of our students, regardless of their socioeconomic standing, have access to the tools which enable them to receive a quality education. Schools will be provided with alcohol-based hand gels or sanitizers containing at least 60% alcohol, which will be placed in classrooms, office areas, staff rooms, and elsewhere as appropriate on the campuses. Administrators will maintain an updated list of emergency contacts for all students and staff, as well as contacts of health care personnel. Staff or students who become sick during the course of the day will be referred to the medical personnel on site without creating a stigma. Parents, caregivers will be immediately notified, and if necessary, staff or students will be directed to an appropriate health facility. In those instances where staff or students fall ill, they will be required to be cleared by a physician before returning to campus. Mr. Speaker, the Ministry of Education has also initiated protection and well-being and social assistance for all concerned. In that regard, guidance counselors are available to provide support to staff and students. The ministry's Employee Assistance Program continues to offer its services to staff upon self-referral or referral from the principal. And despite the uncertainty caused by this virus, we will be giving further updates on the situations as they warrant. I ask all to stay tuned to announcements from the Ministry of Education, and please listen to only official announcements from official sources. Please also know that further details are forthcoming as the plans are further refined. Thank you and good morning.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Order that the communication be brought up. Honorable Member, what are you seeking to do?
There's no doubt that the COVID-19 issue, as you quite rightly pointed out in your opening, has introduced a new paradigm to the country today. I'm just wondering whether the Prime Minister, the government would just answer some questions, particularly as relate to me. Like Cat Island has been affected, and of course, there's panic and chaos and confusion in Grand Bahama. And I think we are at a stage where some answers really need to be had in respect to the government's readiness, and so the people will understand our appreciation of where the government's readiness is in respect to the way forward. And if we could just have a quick response to some of the questions I have, we appreciate it.
The Chair recognizes the Honorable Member for Kalani. Just a moment, Honorable Member. Order that the document to lie on the table. Chair recognizes the Honorable Member for Kalani.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I gave a brief overview this morning as to individuals why Bahamians would have been held in certain facilities so as to be appropriately assessed by the health authority so that we would not have individuals unrecorded or improperly recorded moved through not only New Providence but Family Islands. Remember, I asked specifically about Cat Island. If this, yes, but what I want to inform the member is that tomorrow, the Ministry of Health has always been giving updates, etc., as opposed to having each and every individual talking about it. Tomorrow, the Minister of Health would give a complete report and overview, and the questions that you may have, you may find that they may be answered in that comprehensive report that the Minister would give. And moving forward, the Ministry of Health would to continue with their press briefing, and again, they would inform the entire nation, not just you, but the way forward.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Further statements and communications by ministers. Communications by the clerk. Messages from the Governor General. Messages from the Senate. Motions for leave of absence, leave to resign seat, and new writs. Presentation of petitions. Presentations and reports of committees. Adoption of reports of committees. First reading of bills. Second, reading and committal of bills. Committee of the whole House. Third reading and passing of bills. Consideration of Senate amendments. Resolutions. The chair recognizes the honorable member for Freetown.
Huh? You have the resolution. You all have the resolution, Robert? No, this is the second reading of the resolution. Second reading of the resolution. First reading.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to move the following resolution. Whereas the Bahamas Development Bank, hereinafter called the Bank, a body corporate established under the provisions of the Bahamas Development Bank Act, Chapter 57, Statute Law of the Bahamas 2000, is vested with the following functions. A, to promote industrial, agricultural, and commercial development of the Bahamas through the financing of or the investing in approved enterprises. B, to encourage the participation in approved enterprises by citizens of the Bahamas. And C, to promote and enhance the economic development of the Bahamas. And whereas on the 17th of February 2000, and the last paragraph, be it therefore resolved, this House approves the guarantee by the government of the fulfillment of the bank's obligations under a $37 million 20-year loan with the National Insurance Board at an interest rate of 3.4%.
Honorable member.
3.94%. Misread it. Mr. Speaker, I stand today really representing my good brother from Grand Bahama, the Minister of Finance, who, as we all know, is self-quarantining in his home island. And I send my best wishes to all of our parliamentary brothers and sisters, all of the citizenry of Grand Bahama as they navigate their current situation. Mr. Speaker, the Bahamas Development Bank was established in 1974 under the BDB, the Bahamas Development Bank Act, as a fully government-sponsored development financial institution. BDB's mandate is to be a catalyst for economic development throughout the entire archipelago by investing in Bahamians. BDB seeks to undertake this objective by financing economically viable projects that create employment, utilize local resources, improve trade balance, introduce new technologies and skills to promote and enhance the overall economic development and prosperity of agriculture, fisheries, manufacturing, services, tourism, and transport sectors in the Bahamas. Over the past 43 years, BDB's lending has seeded prominent Bahamian businesses and provided a vital lifeline for family island communities as the primary financier of mailboats. The impact of BDB on the prosperity of many Bahamians cannot be overstated. BDB has been tasked with a broad mandate and accompanying powers under its statutory legislation. BDB has historically only extended collateral-based credit, suggesting that the bank represents a powerful but underutilized policy instrument for economic diversification, expansion, and Bahamian empowerment. In an effort to propel the bank in a sustainable direction, the BDB, with the assistance of a grant from the Caribbean Development Bank, engaged the services of International Financing Consulting Limited, based out of Canada, to examine its framework, its operating environment, its governance, and culture in a comprehensive diagnostic review. This review highlighted the positive direction that the bank has been moving in a result of systematic retooling under the current management. The diagnostic review has been concluded, and an ambitious and innovative 5-year strategic plan that will ultimately allow BDB to deliver on the promise of its mandate. Mr. Speaker, it has been determined that BDB's strategic objectives should be as follows: achieve financial sustainability, increase reach through new products and distribution channels, enhance governance and oversight, streamline internal processes, develop internal capacity, and maximize development impact with alignment to the sustainable development goals. Mr. Speaker, the new BDB is in the process of achieving all of these objectives and has recently undergone a rebranding with a fresh, new, and innovative approach to its mandate. Mr. Speaker, today I'd like to address the first objective, achieving financial sustainability. The Bahamas Development Bank was funded by an issue of bonds. In February 2000 and June 2005, this Honorable House approved resolutions in the amount of $25 million, each to guarantee BDB's obligation pertaining to the redemption of and payment of interest on the Series A, B, C, and D bonds issued to the National Insurance Board, i.e. in the amount of $46 million, and the Central Bank of the Bahamas in the amount of $4 million. 46 plus 4, $50 million. In accordance with the BDB Act, Chapter 327, Issue of Bonds, Regulations 2000, a sinking fund was established to meet the obligation. Mr. Speaker, over the years, the proceeds from the bond issue were utilized for on-lending to Bahamians. As a result of various factors, including adverse impact on the global and local economies, BDB experienced similar challenges to that of commercial banks as regards to the performance of its loan portfolio. Mr. Speaker, it is important to note that BDB is not just a bank, but a development bank. And as is typically the case, the risk appetite differs from that of a commercial bank because its purpose is fundamentally different. BDB does not operate with a profit as a primary focus. The development bank exists to invest in areas the country needs, but the private sector will not go. It has the great task of forging ahead and nurturing not just businesses, but industries until they can stand on their own and access capital from traditional sources of funding, e.g. capital markets, domestic banks, etc. BDB is the development bank for the entire Bahamas. Its activity stretches from the northern tip of our nation in Walker's Key, Abaco, to as far south as Matthew Town in Greater Nagua. The bank acts in this way because its focus is on economic development and alignment with the national development policies of the Bahamas. I might add that BDB's focus and activities is not out of step with national development banks across the region, and indeed in the rest of the world that enjoy government support by way of capital injections. In fact, according to the 2017 Global Survey of Development Banks, 32% of them have been recapitalized in the last 4 years. While the Bahamas Development Bank has not been sufficiently recapitalized, contemplation is being given to this critical need as highlighted by the concluded diagnostic review prepared by IFC. In the short term, to address significant demand for credit, BDB is desirous for the sinking fund to be released to meet such demand. To achieve the release of the sinking fund, the government is obliged to provide a guarantee in support of the NIB bond to loan conversion in the amount of $37 million. Mr. Speaker, we can agree that as a country, we are facing significant economic challenges resulting from the COVID-19 pandemic. The Bahamas Development Bank has a critical role to play in addressing counter-cyclical impact that we anticipate in the months ahead. BDB has been re-engineered over the past 23 months and has made significant steps towards its reform and revitalization. The bank has acquired new technology, created a culture of accountability, and has fully embraced its role as a catalyst for economic development via strengthening existing partnerships and fostering new ones. The non-performing loan rate has been cut from 76% to 24%, with consistent focus on collecting on bad debts. It is clear that today, BDB is in the best financial health that it has been in decades. Mr. Speaker, as I conclude this contribution, I wish to reiterate that this resolution, pursuant to Part 4, Section 17, Subsection 1 of the Bahamas Development Bank Act 1974, which states, and I quote, "With the prior approval signified by resolution of the House of Assembly, the Minister may guarantee in such manner and on such conditions as he may think fit the payment of the principal and of interest on any authorized borrowings of the bank," end quote. A resolution to guarantee the loan from the NIB in the amount of $37 million is required and would assist the BDB achieving its mandate, allowing Bahamians to access affordable lending and contribute to mitigating some of the economic challenges. We remain committed to putting Bahamians first by utilizing statutory bodies such as the Bahamas Development Bank by way of the effective execution of its mandate under the BDB Act of 1974. We remain committed to doing all that we can in supporting Bahamians by taking immediate action and practical steps along the road ahead. We remain committed to seeing a strong, resilient Bahamas. With that being said, Mr. Speaker, I look forward to a productive and informative debate on this resolution. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Member. The chair recognizes the Honorable Member for the Exumas and Ragged Island on a point of order.
Speaker, the member for Freetown made the assertion that the bank is in the best financial situation since a decade or in decades. I wonder whether the minister would lay support on the table for this assertion, specifically the financial statements of the bank, and secondly, the diagnostic review as prepared by the IFC that he referred to on several occasions. I just seek that he provide support for that assertion, and I hope that he is right. I'm pulling for the BDB, so I hope he's right.
The chair recognizes the Honorable Member for Freetown.
Thank you, Honorable Member, Zumas and Ragged Island. I received your request. I've taken it under advisement. I will seek the information, and I will. The Ministry of Finance will provide it to you in the shortest possible time. And obviously, in your contribution, you can make reference to whatever you want to make reference to.
The chair recognizes the Honorable Member for the Exumas and Ragged Island.
I accept the undertaking to lay the reports on the table. I trust that they will be forthcoming shortly. In the meantime, however, Mr. Speaker, in the absence of this financial data, we request that the member withdraw the assertion that the bank is performing better today than it's performed in decades. Until he can validate this, Mr. Speaker, I ask that he withdraw.
I withdrew on that.
In the absence of anything to the contrary, I won't withdraw, but I will offer, as I said, to get the information. Obviously, yeah.
Honorable member for Exomus. Are you stating then that the statement that the member for Freetown made is untrue?
Speaker, and this is why I've asked him to support the assertion, Mr. Speaker. He asserts and therefore he must prove.
That's only for outside, not for anyone.
Honorable member for Mangrove Key. Even though you are on your seat, I heard what you represented, but the law also says this, that if you are challenging an assertion of any person, then you must be prepared to say that the assertion is not true. I don't want to proceed any further. The member has given an indication that, yes.
And I trust that the information will be forthcoming.
Honorable members, if we may proceed, is there a second? The chair recognizes the honorable member for Garden Hills.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today, Mr. Speaker, to second and support this resolution. I rise on behalf of the distinguished residents of the Garden Hills constituency who have sent me to this place to represent them and to be their voice. I take seriously, Mr. Speaker, this opportunity to speak to this resolution and to say how pleased I am that the National Insurance Board is supporting Bahamians through the Development Bank. Mr. Speaker, the National Insurance Fund comprises of trust funds belonging to the National Insurance Board's contributors. The trusteeship and principles of safety, yield, liquidity apply to all investments of the National Insurance Board. Hence, the investment of the fund are required to meet these criteria. Mr. Speaker, the funds must be invested so as to adequately meet both the present and future costs of benefits and assistance of the National Insurance Board. As a consequence, Mr. Speaker, all funds invested are spread between short, medium, and long-term assistance and benefit. And categories of the investment of the funds are as follows. National Insurance Board, Mr. Speaker, invests in Bahamas government registered stock, in treasury bills, in bank deposits, in long-term bonds and loans, in equity investments, and in net investments in direct financing leases. Mr. Speaker, the Bahamas Development Bank at this time is a fully sponsored government development financial institution. And the BDB's mandate is to be a catalyst for economic development throughout the entire Bahamas. And its mandate is to invest in Bahamians. That is why it is important for the National Insurance Board to invest and support this mandate. Mr. Speaker, we all know what the role of the Bahamas Development Bank is. Most of us, particularly those persons from the Family Islands, fully appreciate what the Development Bank has done because of its heavy investments in naval boat services throughout this Bahama land. Mr. Speaker, when I was a young man, I can remember a long time ago, the Development Bank investing in my community, investing in 40 horsepower Evinrude engine, Mr. Speaker, where almost every single fisherman in my community bought a small engine through the Development Bank, and thus they were able to make a living, survive in their communities, and thrive, Mr. Speaker, because the Development Bank at the time was loaning out small funds for individuals to purchase these 40 horsepower engine. And I remember my father buying this 40 horsepower Evinrude. And I thought that was the best thing in the world to put on his boat. To go, for him, it was to go do fishing. For me, it was to do pleasure and to show off that we had a boat with an engine. Because, Mr. Speaker, at that time, the major engine, as my colleague from Exoma would know, was a 5 horsepower or a seagull. And if you had a boat with a seagull or a 5 horsepower, Mr. Speaker, you were something. You were the king in the community. So imagine, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, when the Development Bank loaned these small businesses funds to purchase a 40 horsepower engine. That was something big, Mr. Speaker. It encouraged persons to become employed. It encouraged persons to become entrepreneurs. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, because the National Insurance Board was established about the same time, these funds directly impacted the National Insurance Board, because the National Insurance Board, Mr. Speaker, as you know, it is an institution that encourages employment so that we do not have to pay unemployment assistance. And so, Mr. Speaker, what the Development Bank did back then is comparable to what the National Insurance Board is doing today, Mr. Speaker. And I want to just advise this Parliament of how since the 23rd of March of this year, NIB has processed over 36,000 claims and has paid out to the Bahamian public over $78 million. Mr. Speaker, this money is paid out to ordinary Bahamians, Bahamians who have become unemployed, or Bahamians who, because of the shutdown, had to stay home, could not work, Mr. Speaker. And in some cases, Mr. Speaker, the Bahamians who were laid off because of COVID-19. Mr. Speaker, notwithstanding that we have paid out over $78 million to the Bahamian population, Mr. Speaker, I understand that there are some frustrations, there are some complaints, because we know how, as Bahamians, who we are. We know that sometimes we don't worry about all them other people and all them other things. If we ain't get our things, it's a problem. And so, Mr. Speaker, we've been trying to address the small issues, the small persons who may not have gotten their claims processed, who may have only received 1 or 2 payments. Our commitment remains the same, Mr. Speaker. We are committed to pay those persons who qualify 13 weeks of unemployment assistance. We know, Mr. Speaker, that this includes workers throughout the Bahamas. And Mr. Speaker, I was saying to my friend this morning, we are in a very difficult place because when a Bahamian ain't get all their money, or when they believe that they should get more money, or when the money is coming in slow, the complaints will come. I remember talking to one of my staff 2 weeks ago, and I reminded them and I said to them, I get this call 2 or 3 times every single day from this particular person who says that NIB is not living up to its task, not doing its job. And I said to them, pull up this person's name, gave them the name, gave them the place where they worked. I said, show me and give me a printout of what NIB has done for this person. Mr. Speaker, and I was totally surprised when I noticed and it was confirmed that NIB had paid 10 weeks of contribution to this individual and was in the process of running the checks that week for the next 3 weeks. But if you had listened to the person, Mr. Speaker, you would have gotten the impression that NIB had done absolutely nothing for them. And I called the person later, Mr. Speaker, and I said, perhaps there was a mistake, a misunderstanding. Perhaps you thought that you should get a check every week. Well, NIB only runs the check every 2 weeks. Perhaps you thought that you should get more than the $200 that you qualified for. And they said to me, no. I just thought the money was getting to me too slow. And so, Mr. Speaker, I understand the frustration. I know what is being said. We are in the process, Mr. Speaker, of trying to do whatever is necessary to ensure that individuals are paid their unemployment assistance on a timely basis. I only urge, Mr. Speaker, that we have a little patience. I said that before, Mr. Speaker, and the next thing I saw was a name pushed out there that said, Mr. Rhodes said, be cool, don't worry. But Mr. Speaker, all I was saying was, whatever our obligation is to you, to the community, we will do our best, but we will get the funds to you. We will get the funds to you on a timely basis. Mr. Speaker, we started this process from March 23rd. But realize, Mr. Speaker, that we had many applications for assistance dated earlier because March 23rd was the shutdown date, Mr. Speaker. What we did not anticipate, Mr. Speaker, was the amount of layoffs that happened before March 23rd. And so, Mr. Speaker, we're rolling back the date. We've rolled back the date now to March 13th. That means an additional 5,000 persons will get assistance from national insurance in this regard, Mr. Speaker. These persons, Mr. Speaker, once they are properly verified, will receive a benefit from national insurance in the shortest possible time. Mr. Speaker, no one could have anticipated, no one would have known that COVID-19 would have taken us to this space. When COVID-19 first came, Mr. Speaker, national insurance was in the process of setting up its budget, and we had projected that we would spend a maximum of $60 million. Mr. Speaker, we will not be surprised if we spend $100 million on this exercise. And that's from the national insurance side, Mr. Speaker. That's not from the government's assistance program. The government assistance program, Mr. Speaker, as you know, and as you are aware, the government, consistent with its mandate, which has been all along, it's the people's time, and consistent with our position to care for Bahamian people, the Bahamian people, to look after the poor and the depressed and the underprivileged, Mr. Speaker. The government has put out initially $10 million to support and to be the public safety net for taxi drivers, barbers, hair braiders, anyone in the touristic industry, Mr. Speaker, who lost their jobs because of COVID-19. Government soon found out, Mr. Speaker, that $10 million wasn't enough. $10 million, Mr. Speaker, went in a simple clap. And so, Mr. Speaker, the government, consistent with what we believe is our obligation, has put in this budget $48 million. This $48 million, Mr. Speaker, is directed towards the same group of individuals, the depressed, the poor, the individuals who have lost their jobs because of COVID, Mr. Speaker, individuals who through no fault of their own, Mr. Speaker, find themselves in this space. And so, Mr. Speaker, what we intend to do is to roll over the 13 weeks that they would have received from national insurance and roll that over to another 13 weeks, Mr. Speaker, for a total of 26 weeks of unemployment assistance with thousands of ordinary Bahamians. Mr. Speaker, we made clear exactly the process of how we are going to manage this process. We've been publishing it in the papers. We've been saying to the public what we're going to do, and we are taking those steps, Mr. Speaker. So immediately, Mr. Speaker, immediately, we know today that approximately 34,000 persons are unemployed. We know for a fact, Mr. Speaker, that they come from all categories of Bahamians. What we know, Mr. Speaker, and what this government has done, Mr. Speaker, is made provisions to deal with and to become the social safety net of thousands of ordinary Bahamians. And Mr. Speaker, in supporting this resolution, Mr. Speaker, I urge these Bahamians, wherever they are in this Commonwealth, Mr. Speaker, to make sure that they abide by the rules, that they encourage their employers to make sure that their contributions are sent to national insurance. To be honest with national insurance, Mr. Speaker, when you return to work, you know the rules. There's unemployment assistance. So if you're at work, you should be paid by your employer, not by national insurance. Mr. Speaker, last time I spoke, I said to some individuals that we were disturbed over the fact that individuals were home and that some employers were sending them work at home. They were obligated to pay them once they were doing their work. But they determined that national insurance was the vehicle that they would use to pay these employees. Mr. Speaker, I understand fully, and I'm sure ordinary Bahamians and most Bahamians understand fully the impact of not budgeting for $78 million and having to pay $78 million over a period of 3 months. Now that will have a great impact on the National Insurance Fund. But we are a social safety network. We are a support-based organization, Mr. Speaker. We only encourage those persons who should pay contributions to make sure it's done. We all now see the value of national insurance. We all now see how important it is, Mr. Speaker, to make sure that your contributions are paid so that in these times, Mr. Speaker, you can receive that benefit. Mr. Speaker, I also want to commend the staff members of the National Insurance Board who work with this. You know, during this pandemic, Mr. Speaker, almost 90% of our staff had to retool. And many of them, Mr. Speaker, had to focus on paying out this benefit and making sure the contributions are in place. And so I want to commend them, Mr. Speaker, for their ability to be nimble and to refocus, to get it done. Mr. Speaker, I feel also obligated to continue to say thanks to the thousands of public officers who put their job on the line, put their safety on the line, who work on a daily basis, Mr. Speaker, to make sure that we are safe. Mr. Speaker, I also want to commend the Member of Parliament for Angleston, whose daughter is leading the charge, Mr. Speaker, to make sure that we are safe. I think, Mr. Speaker, this shows how important it is for us to do the work. Mr. Speaker, and the fact that Angleston's daughter has taken the position that she wants to serve the Bahamian people and be a public officer is not only commendable, Mr. Speaker, but it shows that the stock that she has come from, Mr. Speaker, represents a stock of public officers, Mr. Speaker. Long line, Mr. Speaker. Long line, Mr. Speaker. And so, Mr. Speaker, I also want to commend the Member of Parliament for Angleston for another thing, Mr. Speaker. Let me say this. I'm sure as the parent of this person, she could go to this wonderful public officer and say, give me some inside story. But she has shown the dignity and the professionalism of, yeah, all good qualities, you're right. Of not crossing the line, demonstrating a commitment to the Bahamian people. And so, Angleston, I'm proud of you. I'm certainly proud of your daughter, who's leading this charge. And Mr. Speaker, it shows that notwithstanding what they say or sometimes what we say, I know the Bahamas is in good hands. The Bahamas is in good hands. It is one Bahamas, Mr. Speaker. It is one Bahamas, Mr. Speaker. And therefore I feel proud, Mr. Speaker, of supporting this resolution. And God knows, certainly support the resolution. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Member. The chair recognizes the honorable member for the exhumates. No, just a minute, honorable member. Let me just say that to the member for Michael, I think your prayer this morning and your scriptures is taking root. Spirit of unity, love, peace, and unity. Honorable members, it has been moved and seconded that the following resolution be agreed. Whereas the Bahamas Development Bank, hereinafter called the bank, a body corporate established under the provisions of the Bahamas Development Bank Act, Chapter 357, Statute Law of the Bahamas, 2000, is vested with the following functions. A, to promote industrial, agricultural, and commercial development in the Bahamas through the financing of or investing in approved enterprises. B, to encourage the participation in approved enterprises by citizens of the Bahamas. And C, generally to promote and enhance the economic development of the Bahamas. Be it therefore resolved that this House approves the guarantee by the government of the fulfillment of the bank's obligation under a $37 million 20-year loan with the National Insurance Board at an interest rate of 3.94%. As many members are in favor, will remain seated. Those who oppose will stand.
As many, Mr. Speaker.
As many?
Yes, Mr. Speaker. Speaker, I happily rise on behalf of the people of Exumas and Ragged Island to contribute to the resolution on the Bahamas Development Bank. I'll say off the top that we have no objection to this resolution, nor the objective as described. It's nothing too complex, and it appears to be a restructuring of the elements of the balance sheet of the bank by refinancing the bond with a government guaranteed debt. I get and I understand the underlying financial gyrations here. And we support the Bahamas Development Bank. We support the fundamental role it has played in the development of our country and the development of many entrepreneurs across our country. I will say, though, that we are offended that the government would bring such a resolution without providing the bank's financial statements. If you don't have up-to-date audited financial statements, at a minimum, you bring the management accounts. In the private sector, it is highly unusual. It is even frowned upon to be asked to restructure a balance sheet without actually seeing the balance sheet. So you come to Parliament, your board of directors, who represents your shareholders, the Bahamian people, and you ask us to act blindly. Little discussion or analysis on the entity, no forecasts or strategic plans laid, no long-term business plans laid, no idea of the mechanism for long-term ongoing funding for the bank to do what it is actually supposed to do. The request comes in the absence of financials, even though we now know there has been a diagnostic report, and even that report up to this point has not been laid. This is wholly inappropriate, and it's disrespectful, I might add. We are being asked to make decisions, but not being provided with the information we need, and this is not a most transparent process. Mr. Speaker, the resolution rightfully points out that the bank was created to promote industrial, agricultural, and commercial developments in the Bahamas through the financing of or the investing in approved enterprises, to encourage the participation in approved enterprises by citizens of the Bahamas, and generally to promote and enhance the economic development of the Bahamas. So after 46 years, we should be able to seriously reflect on whether the bank has fulfilled its mandate of helping entrepreneurs and enhancing economic development. And if we travel the length and breadth of the Bahamas, we will hear many such stories as the member for Garden Hills articulated. And we are grateful for this institution, and we are thankful to the many Bahamian professionals who manned it over the many decades. It is a good time to do an introspective analysis, examining the objectives, the failures, and celebrating the successes. The analysis we should get should go beyond the equity of the bank itself, which I suspect is challenged, but it should also reflect upon whether the bank is creating equity for Bahamians. Development is right there in the word, in the name, Bahamas Development Bank. Is the Bahamas Development Bank, therefore, fostering the kind of development that is growing our economy at an appreciable rate, empowering Bahamians, driving development? This is the critical introspective analysis that we should be doing at this stage in the development of the bank. Mr. Speaker, as it relates to industry and development, and as an aside, we note the recent orders as it relates to Arawak Key and Porter's Key. No doubt many entrepreneurs like these have benefited from the institutions like the Bahamas Development Bank and other small business development center institutions in the Bahamas. However, Mr. Speaker, the vendors at Arawak Key and Porter's Key are baffled by the recent decisions made by the competent authority. And I want to echo the leader of the opposition's remarks yesterday, that the competent authority must start to answer questions. He must give an account. He has an obligation to the Bahamian people to rationalize and explain and justify the decisions that he makes. So, the vendors at Arawak Key and Porter's Key believe that the competent authority is applying discriminatory practices as it relates to shutting down their facilities, and in my view, allowing this view to persist is shameless. And the government, the competent authority, must give an account. Bahamas Development Bank was designed to support developments like these on those keys. And from the days when count stands was a one-man operation operating on the side of a reel, one of those big reels that the BEC wires come on. From then to now, we see thriving enterprises. From then to today, we see the creation of a significant number of jobs. But yet today, I can have a meal at the restaurant across the street from Arawak Key. I can have a meal at restaurants on Cable Beach, but I cannot have a meal at Trudy's or Curly's or Drifters. What is this about? The competent authority must explain. This is pathetic in my view, and something is clearly missing. The scientific rationale has not been put, and therefore it appears discriminatory. These are Bahamian entrepreneurs who strive to make a living the right way. If you have restaurants not comply, then you deal with them on a case-by-case basis. If you feel they ought to be shut down for infractions, there is the authority under the law to do so. But let's not allow the innocent to suffer for the guilty. We are a nation of laws. The competent authority makes orders. We have a police station at Iraqi and Porterski. And I would like to think that we respect the police enough to permit them to do their jobs rather than destroy businesses and livelihoods. Mr. Speaker, the entrepreneurs at Iraqi would have gone out and bought supplies. And no doubt, as a result of the decision on Sunday, or the announcement of the decision on Sunday, to close these restaurants, there would be wastage, there would be spoilage, and these vendors would have electricity bills and children and employees just like us. Giving appropriate notice to them of the impending closure, if there is a scientific basis to do so, would be the appropriate way, in my opinion, to do this. We've been at this now for several months. We must get better at it. These people are barely, in many instances, making a living. So who will compensate them for their loss? Where is your heart? Where is your soul?
MIA.
Where is your compassion?
MIA.
So getting back to the Bahamas Development Bank, no doubt the bank has helped many over the last almost 50 years. But we're being honest, though the bank has helped, it hasn't really driven the kind of growth in these sectors that we would like to see. We still have huge food import bills. We still have huge industrial import bills. And outside of Freeport, we have a pretty lackluster industrial sector. And it's important that we analyze why. It's important that we analyze how the bank can help to build capacity in these industries. Our proximity to the United States has been one of our greatest blessings. However, it has also been a hindrance to certain areas of national development. So in terms of agriculture and light industrial goods, it appears far more convenient for us to bring them in bulk, simplify the supply chain, rather than supporting local industry. The bank was established to support local industries and build capacity, and this is what we must continue to support. Mr. Speaker, we want to create jobs here, in agriculture, in fisheries, in light manufacturing, in planting and harvesting and packaging and selling. And we want to feed ourselves and our tourists. And we talked a lot about agriculture over the past budget debate. But the Bahamas Development Bank is that institution, if properly funded, that can help, along with the other institutions, to build capacity, create development, and create jobs much needed in our economy. I note that the government now is investing in hatcheries to source more poultry and more eggs in particular, just as we recommended in our COVID mitigation plan. This is good. It's a good first step, though I think that the investment could be more robust. The Bahamas Development Bank, I repeat, has that profound responsibility to improve the access to capital and to improve the building of capacity in these areas. Mr. Speaker, we can go on about the need for food security. We could go on with the need for developing proper logistical systems, transportation. And we can go on about the need for reducing our level of imports. And this is why these institutions must work in harmony. The member for Marco City isn't here, but I know he is watching. So I will tell him that he's looking at a very prolific backyard farmer right here in the person, the member of Exuma and Ragged Island. And I grow a lot of cucumbers right in my backyard. And there are so many of them, and they are so healthy, and they are so tasty. I wonder why we would continue to import them, but we do. This is an opportunity for us to look to those quick-turn products, cucumbers, onions, tomatoes, peppers, leafy greens. This will help us from the place where we now are to a place where we need to be, shoring up food security. Mr. Speaker, I have said before, and I will say so again for the record, that it's important that we harmonize all of the institutions that currently work to support small and medium-sized businesses. Merging under one umbrella, the Small Business Development Center, the Bahamas Development Bank, the BAIC, and other supporting entities like the Venture Fund, to ensure there is efficiency, to ensure that there is effectiveness, to ensure that there is ease of doing business, to ensure that there is adequate, appropriate, fast support for domestic investments. This is what a PLP government will do. Supporting the initiative of food security and expansion of industry. In our COVID-19 mitigation plan, we suggested that the government secure $250 million in funding and make it available in grants and loans to support small and medium-sized enterprises. If we are able to do this, this will create a healthy injection into our economy. It will create jobs. It will create empowerment and opportunities. I would make a call today to Bahamians everywhere who receive support from the Bahamas Development Bank to show support in kind for the Bahamas Development Bank by living up to the obligations that's made. Because this will allow other entrepreneurs to benefit likewise. And I believe once we all put our shoulders to the wheel in doing so, we will create more opportunities. We will build more capacity. We can focus more funding towards industries like technology and e-commerce and renewable energy, which have good salaries, scalability, and spin-off possibilities. This is what we must do. We must press forward and create jobs. The sectors supported, in my view, must be in line with the National Development Plan and in line with the established sector priorities, building upon our competitive advantage. The plan must have funding goals that allow qualifying would-be entrepreneurs to become small business persons, qualifying small business to become medium-sized businesses, qualifying medium-sized businesses to become locally, regionally, and globally competitive, and ultimately becoming large businesses. This was the mandate of the vision of the bank, this incredible institution, started in 1974. 1974, as a forward-looking entity to build capacity, to create and support industries, and to empower Bahamians. So a PLP government would consolidate the agencies. We will continue to support this sound institution, and we will continue to ensure that this development bank plays a key role in the economic development of our country. We believe the government, through institutions like this, should be the champions of empowerment of our youth. This includes giving young people access to capital. And we must actively engage those young people. And therefore, through social responsibility, we hope that the Bahamas Development Bank and its professionals would get into the schools as well, working along with junior achievement, helping to encourage participation in industry, making agriculture and fisheries and light manufacturing and cottage industries, making them attractive and sexy, I might say, for students to aspire to do, to make a living, and to create wealth for their families. I was impressed yesterday listening to someone in the manufacturing space who indicated that out of his 12 employees, 7 of them out of 12 were hearing impaired. And they work in light manufacturing. So here it is, a business in the industry, creating opportunities for persons who may not readily access jobs or opportunities in other sectors. And this is why it's so critically important that we protect and we support the Bahamas Development Bank. And that's what a progressive Liberal Party government will do. We believe the support of cottage industries will reduce structural unemployment and will positively impact discouraged workers, persons who have given up when finding a job, persons who are no longer counted amongst the unemployed. They must still survive. They must still pay their bills. They must still support their families. They must still motivate their children to seek a better way of life. So when we talk about the Bahamas Development Bank, we do want to see the balance sheet. But it's more than just the equity of the bank that we are concerned about. We are concerned about the creating of equity for Bahamians in the broader sense. And that's what a progressive Liberal Party government will do. If we expect to just unleash people into the world, give them little guidance, a little support, then we might as well stop the talk about empowering Bahamians. We must provide more than just lip service. We must give true support. We have a lot of young people who are natural leaders, natural organizers, who can galvanize others to become even much more productive. But we have to harness that. We must continue to guide it. We must continue to support it. We must continue to build the capacity, and we must continue to increase funding available to industry and development and creating entrepreneurs across our country. I want to talk a bit about Exuma. Because we have active programs to encourage entrepreneurship. We have the Bahamas Empowerment Fund, a quasi-philanthropic fund that has invested more than $100,000 in the past 3 years into small and medium-sized businesses. We've assisted dozens of persons in unleashing that entrepreneurial spirit with workshops and business planning sessions. We have currently 25 established business persons enrolled in QuickBooks training to improve their financial management. We are actively working with 7 to 10 startup entrepreneurs as we speak to shepherd them through the planning process to the point of receiving funding. We also plan on having free legal consultations conducted on July 30 and 31st on the island of Exuma by Wayne Monroe QC, providing free consultation. This would cover business structuring, company formation, and other legal matters that may present themselves. You see, in Exuma, we don't just talk it. We make it happen. And we work to see how we can empower ourselves and empower the people around us. That's how we do it in Exuma. So we don't just use the opportunities available to us to empower ourselves, but we use those opportunities to empower others. So let's continue the mission of expansion and growth of institutions like the Bahamas Development Bank, established in 1974, I might add, as a forward-looking institution to help to build and empower and to grow our country. Let's shift the way we approach development. Let's create opportunities for Bahamians. Let's put more money behind industries. Let's maximize the mandate of the Bahamas Development Bank. Let's foster real growth and development, and let's promote real empowerment. And that's what a PLP government will do. So with those remarks, I conclude by thanking the people of Exumas and Ragged Island for the opportunity to serve them. And I reconfirm our support for the Bahamas Development Bank. But before I close, I urge my constituents in Exuma, Exuma Keys, and Ragged Island to continue to follow the health protocols, to wear masks, to avoid large crowds, and to practice social distancing. We are still officially COVID-free in Exuma. This is a long road ahead, and the struggle, it appears, has gotten real. So we ask you to continue to follow the protocols and to be safe. May God bless you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. As many. Chair recognizes the Honorable Member for Mangrove Key, South and Central Andrews.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Speaker, I'd like to say how proud I am to stand today on behalf of the great people of South, Central, and Mangrove Key Andros on an overcast Wednesday as we continue to celebrate our nation's independence. And we want to say to all Bahamians and in sundry, a very pleasant one, and may God continue to bless the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. This is a very interesting time for our country, our Commonwealth, amidst the challenges of the COVID-19 development and pandemic. But I'd like to note and salute those who are primary or frontline healthcare workers, especially this afternoon, for their selflessness. The nurses, doctors, ancillary healthcare officials, and the caregivers, and also those in the private sector who would have given much, Mr. Speaker, during this pandemic. A bit of a housekeeping element, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to note the fact that I like the idea of you having members involved in the Parliament. I've listened to the member for South Beach. I had a chance, the member for North Abaco, who has a good Church of God background, and the member for Michael and others, with the prayer. But I think in this honorable place, it would be good for us to have engaged on a sustained basis a chaplain for this honorable place, because it reflects how people would see this place. A chaplain should be here on a more frequent basis in this honorable place. I have no problem with lifting my God, but also I think things should be done at all times in decency and order. And I hope that, I know there are a lot of members in the wider community, I know why I'm saying that to you, because the public has asked what has happened to the chaplain of the halls of Parliament. And so therefore, no indictment on no members. The member for Michael reads well, she's done well. But at the end of the day, there's a place in this place, there's a place in this honorable place, a role in this place for a member who's the chaplain to play in this honorable place. And we hope he can see that return very shortly.
Honorable member, since you raised the issue, let me just state for the record that a chaplain has been approved by the cabinet for quite some time now, but because of the COVID-19 circumstance, which affected personally the family of the approved chaplain, who has a daughter on the front line and himself engaged in matters on the front line, which caused him not to be able to attend and to participate as the chaplain. The chair has been in communication with him just a few weeks ago, and a decision has been taken to seek the appointment of a new chaplain, and that matter is now going before cabinet for approval. So very shortly, we should have a chaplain appointed on a full-time basis. But let me just say that I am of the view that the period where we functioned without a chaplain was a great service to this Parliament by having the involvement and participation of various members, including yourself, Manguki, South, and Central Andres. I think we all did a good, excellent job. I'm particularly impressed. Yes. Honorable member, I appreciate the concern expressed though, because we should have on the record a full-time chaplain.
Thank you very much.
And we preserve your minutes for the intervention.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I know you'll always defend me. Thank you very much. Today, I would like to proffer my comments by saying one or two things, as members have been given some leeway to talk about other extenuating circumstances and issues in our country. Just a few weeks ago, international visitors returned to the Bahamas for the first time in months, as Florida and the wider United States were seeing increasing numbers in their fight against the COVID-19 pandemic. Florida, just next door, would have seen numbers in the range of some 10 to 12,000 new infections virtually daily. It was at that time when we heard about the opening and the announcements by the honorable member for Kalani, that the leader of the opposition raised the concern, I wouldn't say the alarm, but the concern about the opening and the risk that could come with such opening. And he noted at that time that many of the European blocs and Canada and others were very concerned about allowing persons to travel from the United States market to their territories. But today, we've seen the challenges. We are still concerned. But today, we do support the effort by the present administration. Some are saying, be it too late. Others are saying it's gone too far. What about civil liberties? But here we are today. What I would err on the side of saying simply, prevention is better than cure. The European markets have reopened to the world, but still continues to ban American visitors. And even some local states in America, for example, they are very guarded about their own nationals traveling into their various states or provinces. We in the Bahamas, we've got our own concerns generally. And many questions continue to abound. As I sat here in this honorable place and took some generally handwritten notes, the questions that were posed to me, generally, persons are asking about the testing facilities and capacity. We are hearing in the United States of America, over 40 million Americans would have been tested. But the same questions continue to be asked in our country unabatedly. What about testing and the capacity for persons to get testing? Why are we not saying these sites at the various malls or downtown or on Carmichael Road at the shopping plaza somewhere where persons could be properly tested at a very easy, and these testing can be done very easily, pardon me, in the wider Bahamian society, especially here in New Providence. Contact tracing is another issue that Bahamians are very concerned about. And also the issue of proper quarantining facilities. We heard just last evening many stories, some pretty alarming. But the issue of quarantining facilities is another one that concerns Bahamians today. Are we still engaging the facilities at the Super Clubs and Breezes? Or what about the facilities on Blake Road or other ones? But I'd be minded to warn the governing side that Bahamians are very concerned about the use of the Kendall GL-I-6 Gymnasium. The conditions there would have led to many having much concern and much consternation, and it's less than humane, in my view, for persons to be housed there. I think the government, with all these hotels that have been closed, if there's going to be quarantining, they should be engaging these properties that allow people to live at Bahamian people to live at a certain standards, or those who are in our country at this time. I quickly would note, Mr. Speaker, as just recently, 2 weekends ago, me and my wife, we drove into North Andros with the island administrator. And I'm still baffled by the fact that there is a major campus there and a property owned by the proprietor of Western Air, Mr. Rex Roll. Such a lovely campus facility in North Andros that could be utilized for hurricane, natural disasters, and unfortunate developments such as we see now with the COVID-19 patients. Where, in my view, we can easily keep a handle on things in that community in a more structured kind of environment. I'm not wishing, I'm an Androsian son. I don't want to wish anything adverse on that community. But it's an environment that allows people to be housed in a very structured kind of environment. And I think the government should look at it, because when we have these hurricanes and natural disasters, it's another facility that could be used for the same. It's there, a beautiful place. Generally, I took note of the fact that I had about 3 or 4 persons who WhatsApp me notes this morning about the food stores and security or staff members with temperature guns. How persons are sometimes averse to these persons taking their temperature. Some saying they're getting too close, some saying they're too far. What are they going to do to me? And persons don't want the same gun to be used or be put too close to them. And these are some of the things that persons are asking. For example, when you want to go to the gas station, I'm going to speak to the down-home issues. Some weeks ago, Freetown, when you went to the gas station, every gas station had a hand sanitizer on the wall and someone standing at the door to spray your hand. All that is now stopped. Many of the food stores, the same thing has stopped. So I am saying that and many of these sanitizing facilities, containers are pretty empty for the most part in these stores as you enter them. We've got to go through what we call a real reinforcement process of our messaging. Our people must know that this thing is serious and that it is here for a little while, and we got to work on it, and we must work on it collectively. I am still concerned about this whole issue of the junior doctors that were not re-engaged by the Bahamas government. these young doctors would have helped out amidst all the challenges, and it was none less than the member for Kalani who stood in this place and asked all medical practitioners to assist some weeks ago. And they would have been a part of this engagement process. I had a chance to talk with one of them more recently, in more recent times, I would say. And therefore, I asked the newly minted Minister of Health, the member for Bamboo Town, to engage these junior doctors. And he's a man of great gigacity, a young man with plenty of energy, to please get these young doctors and get them re-engaged. I would hate to know that all the family island communities can't have a medical doctor or someone to give them assistance in case of all these challenges that is going on around us. And those who are concerned because they're hearing that new people would have entered their family island territory. I don't want to be namely, but that's where we are. So all those doctors, Bamboo Town, you man of play energy. Have a meeting with them post haste. And let's engage these young doctors. We need them at this time because the member for Kalani told us over the next 14 days is going to be critical for all us to not only watch and pray, be observant, and to adhere to the strict rubric that he and members of the competent authority have enforced upon us in the executive orders during this time in our society. I am very concerned as a family island member of parliament about medicine. Do we have sufficient supply in these family islands? I've asked the question, and the person have asked me, is there the hydrochloroquine in South Angela, so the remdesivir, for example, and other medicines are available in Miriam Green and Kemps Bay? Or what about the clinic in Mangrove Key or the clinic in Fresh Creek? Many are asking what kind of supplies we have in our family islands. You don't hear these kind of things being spoken to. What happens in New Providence does not fit these family island communities. We would like to know if there's proper medical supplies, if persons are caught off guard or they're found to be positive in these family island communities before they could be airlifted to New Providence. Do we have enough or some kind of supplies in the family islands? God help you if you would be caught maybe sick in somewhere like Mayagwana where there's less flights, for example, or Auckland's. Andros isn't too far away. Long Island. These are the questions that we should be able to hear when we have these press conferences where you can assure people who are living in family island communities. I'm an island boy. Say if you are in Old Bight and Cat Island or T-Bay or in Parrotswell, Mayagwana, there is some medical supplies and assistance that is available to you. Family island people want to know these kind of things. And no one's saying to be talking about it. You're telling people in Nassau, go to Blue Hill Road Clinic, go to South Beach Clinic, go to the Princess Margaret Hospital. That can't do nothing for the people in my constituency or in the family islands. I want someone to speak to the people in Roxong, to the people in Governor's Harbor, in Harbour Island, those in Old Bight, wherever they are in the family islands. The people in the family islands are part of society and they need to feel that we are speaking on their behalf and to them and to their well-being. Mr. Speaker, I know the fact, before I go quickly to my comments on the Development Bank, another concern for family island people are those of the concern of airlift from the family islands. We are continuing to hear about the concern of the monopoly or the control of this process by the Bahamas government. There must be approval from someone from the competent authority or the Ministry of Health before airlifts could be dispatched to the family islands. Mr. Speaker, in many instances, this could lead to persons virtually being imperiled or dying before the plane arrives. You're telling me now, man, look here, that's what I'm talking about. That's why I speak for the people of Andros, and I'm their champion. And you can't change that. That's the way it is. If something happens and I know my people in my, suppose something would happen to someone like Mr. Benzel Hanna, or Pastor Roy Hanna in Love Hill, or Norbert Ramming, or maybe Reverend Newton Hamilton in South Andros, or Reverend King, for example, in Mangrove Key. I had to wait, instead of having maybe a Glenn Pratt who has a charter on the airport in Fresh Creek, who could be utilized to come to Nassau to bring Reverend King or Reverend Newton Hamilton to Nassau. I got to wait until I get clearance from the new member, the Minister of Health, the member for Bamboo Town, or some senior staff member, to get that plane to go to Andros, when the plane is already there on the airport in Fresh Creek. And then when the whole process is done, the government want to pay for the plane? Come on, man. I'm an island boy. We gotta understand how people in the family island catch hell out there when these things can't be resolved easily. We gotta have some common sense in this process. We can't wait for a plane to go all the way to Auckland. We gotta be able to pay for that plane, the charter plane already in Auckland that can bring the person maybe to Exuma and they get to town. There must be some common sense logic in how we look at this healthcare in our society. It is too national-centric, and I'm tired of it. Our people in the family island are very concerned. New people have shown up in their family island communities, and they want to know if something would have happened to them, how easy it is for them to get to the Providence to protect their health and their well-being. That's where we are. The Speaker, as I speak this afternoon, as we get close to the 1 o'clock news, I know, the airstrip lights are still not non-operational at the Congo Tang International Airport. And that is very serious. For years, when I would have been growing up in the 70s as a young boy and so on, we would have used the truck and car light. We cannot go back there. Garden Hills, you must protect the senior member. When you go to the cabinet meeting tomorrow, please get something done about my lights at the Congo Tang International Airport. We must be able to have airlift at any time during these very challenging and vexing moments in our society. Mr. Speaker, quickly on the issue with COVID fight, to the member for Kalani in his absence, I know the fact that, Mr. Speaker, you from an island community like I am, the salt water is used as a therapeutic agent in our society generally. Any given morning, you can see many older gentlemen in the waters at Fort Montague. These gentlemen have asked the honorable member for South Andros, Mangop Key, and Central Andros, can you please ask the competent authority to look at extending the beach hours, especially for the older men and women, from between the hours of 5 a.m. at least to 9 a.m. Open the hours, from 5 a.m. to 9 a.m. That's all they're asking. Every morning you walk, if you live east like me, the member for the Exumas live west on top of the hill. I live east in the bottom. But the fact of the matter is, if you live east like me, Mr. Speaker, you see scores of people walking the streets, and they go where? Straight to the end of the road on Prince Charles, and they want to go in the sea. I want to thank the member for Carmichael. They remove the cashew on the trees and very invasive trees. And they put some benches, they put some shade at the end of Prince Charles. And by the same token, allow people to go into the sea, at least what we call the salt water, between the hours of 5 a.m. to 9 a.m. I'm asking the good member for Carmichael to please intercede and speak with the member for Kalani so that this could be done and put some shades out there, because these are a lot of people who asked me Freetown. These are people who supported him. So I wouldn't go any further with that. So I'm just saying to put a little shade at the end of Prince Charles and allow the beach to be open between the hours of 5 a.m. to 9 a.m. We've all seen all the snafus and the mix-up with the executive, the emergency orders. I'll leave that for another time. But once again, I must say quickly for my good friends at Porter's Key and Arawak Key, I'm very concerned, as you heard the member for Exuma so eloquently stated just now. We saw the extension for Wendy's and Burger Kings and McDonald's, and Arawak Key, Porter's Key once again to close down. Some has called it simply the pauperization of the small man. That's what this could lead to, pauperizing small men. When you look at it, the fact of the matter is, though, for me, family islands of mailboat, the Captain Moxie in particular, Lady Katrina, would go to my constituency, or the K and G and all these other boats. People go to the mailboat, older people go to the mailboats earlier in the evening or late afternoon. What they do? When they're at Porter's Key Dock waiting for the mailboat to go, the member for Fort Charlotte would never know about this. He grew up in town, he would know about this. So the fact of the matter is, when they go there, they're going to get some wings, a little fritters, some conch salad, while waiting for the mailboat to depart. When Porter's Key Dock is closed, you're asking someone who's concerned about crime and other elements in New Providence to ask someone to bring them this, so they have to try to walk down on Marquis Street. I am saying we've got to bear some little things in mind in making some hasty decisions. Many persons are now using mailboat services. And the member for Bamboo Town knows this. I've contacted them in more recent weeks about these developments. I am saying that we must be concerned about these closures at Port of Quedagh in particular, because it has implications. I can't understand it why it is being done again, but we'll understand it, I hope, better by and by, and pretty shortly we'll get some answers. I was glad to hear the member for Gardner's talk about the developments at the National Insurance Board, and people want to know how much money they're going to be getting. That's the question I kept on getting. We heard about the further assistance. Some are saying it's 150, others are saying that it could be more. Readers, it may be hoped that this money could be done and the issuance issue could be dealt with quickly, and that our people could get assistance in their hands post-haste in the Family Islands in particular. Sorry, here in New Providence, to those who need assistance right away. On the development bank, the Bahamas Development Bank, it's a post-independence development. And I note the fact that small and medium enterprises are critical in the promotion of economic development and also poverty reduction, not only here in the Bahamas, but worldwide. They generally constitute a vast number of businesses and employ large numbers of people. For here in the Bahamas, we look at the mom and pop shops in the heritage communities, such as what we call Over the Hill, but also along Prince Charles Drive, Carmichael, Robinson Road, etc. These are generally restaurants, food vendors, the coconut boys, the switcher boys, hand sanitizers and road vendors, computer and electronic stores generally. From the World Bank report, there's over 400 million small and medium enterprises worldwide, and they're generally defined as having, on the world stage, 250 employees or less. But in the Bahamian context, we normally view small businesses as employing 50 persons or less. SMEs are vital to development, and generally, they cater to basic goods and essential services and to the poor and excluded people in our communities, clothing, wood products, food to meet household needs, etc. There are a number of challenges that are facing small and medium enterprises as we look at the Bahamas Development Bank. Generally, the first that comes to mind is the lack of access to proper funding. Electricity costs is another one. Technological developments and also improvement of productive capacity is always a challenge for these small businesses. Another one is also the issue of political stability and support, inadequate educated workforce, and poor supervisory protocols, and also the issue of pilferage is another thing that also affects small business in our society. People not being honest. A small man give you a chance to work for him, you're still stealing from him, let's go down home. You know what I'm talking about here. Support for small and medium enterprises, especially as we look at the Bahamas Development Bank today, Mr. Speaker, but have to come through policies and legislative measures, and we must inculcate a strong virtue of allowing credit, technical assistance, and also fiscal incentives that will foster further strength and expansion of small and medium enterprises in our Commonwealth. I'd like to see people going beyond the Bay Streets and the Palmdales and Carmichael. I want to see them now going into the Family Islands, so that the Family Islands could be saying more in this regard, and I'll talk about it in just a minute from now. Business development service, such as training, advisory services, information on new trends and technology, must be a part of the support mechanism. Also, targeted technical assistance, financing of specific enterprises. In Andros' case, financing the bone fishing industry, sponging, bird watching industry, are a very critical element in support for small and medium enterprises that generally are supported by the Bahamas Development Bank and other such institutions. On the environmental side, I speak for my constituencies, things such as nature trails, proper labeling and paving of these trails, creeks and bights and markers are critical to further expansion, because persons would want to stay in their community. Freetown, as you say, was Minister of Tourism and the recent developments in South Andros, but they need assistance to get these things done. They want to be there. And have the trail that goes to the Blue Hole, for example, the inland Blue Hole, or the nature trails as the white crown pigeon season is coming up, that is properly labeled along these paths. But they're going to need assistance for these things to be done. And once they have some basic cementing or some sign of labeling and everything, it allows for these areas to be sustained and persons can have a certain level of income as they remain domiciled in these island communities that are losing some numbers. Of course, we know the land issue is another issue. We know that it's another issue that we must be concerned about. Also, connecting these small and medium enterprises to government department or larger corporations as suppliers or distributors is very critical. And let's remove some of the political curry favoring, we would call it, from these opportunities, and let people get these things on these opportunities on their own merit, as far as humanly possible. Proactive government policies are needed, not simply regulatory reforms in the business environment to tie people to professional businesses and professional businessman hand, but let them breed and improve their business climate locally. Give people a chance so that they can work on things where they are, and don't just simply tie things to what they see or what is applicable to New Providence. That is my main concern. There must be a high government support approach across the board. And I must say that the government has had a level of engagement across the board, and not only for Abaco, Exuma, Freeport, and New Providence, but for the entire Bahamas. Local level policies and involvement is critical here. These people in these family island communities, when we look at small business and the Bahamas Development Bank, they know their communities. They know that what works for Andros is uniquely Andros, and what works for New Providence works for New Providence. These all of our islands should be treated as separate or individual states with equal policies applications, policy application, to these local communities that will inculcate a stronger virtue of further growth and development. Access to finance must be comprehensive. Of course, you would have your feasibility studies done, proper protocols must be followed, all these must be complied with, and also we must have what we call established drawdown policies for financing from the Bahamas Development Bank. It can't be, if it was a PLP, you could only get some of the money, you get 1/3 or you get some, you got to keep on going back, and if you're an FNM or you support the governing side, you get your full 2 million or your straight 1 million one day. It's unfair. I'm saying that there must be a process that is followed across the board. All of these thresholds should be monitored from the first, second, third, or final drawdown, which is permitted or granted through this board. We support the Bahamas Development Bank today. There's a need for improved work and management training on human rights and labor laws and conditions in the contemporary Bahamas. I have 2 minutes, I'll be done. I'll be done. Out of your way. 2 minutes, Mr. Speaker.
Oh, carry on.
I'll be done in 2 minutes, 2 minutes. Appropriate infrastructure must be provided for all family island telecommunications, internet, Wi-Fi, potable water. Good consistent electricity and renewable energy is important. I must note today, Mr. Speaker, I want to commend Mr. McCallum Stubbs and Ed Ramming, who would have led the local Chamber of Commerce in these island communities of my constituency, Central and South Andros, over the years. They need to be rejuvenated now because it led to many of our young people saying things differently. Instead of asking for what I call the traditional government jobs, they wanted to try to empower themselves. And I want to commend these men, and I want others to get engaged in this process. Today, Mr. Speaker, as I wrap things up, I too would like to join and echo the comments and the sentiments of the member for the Exumas and Ragged Island, and asking my people in South, Central, and Mangrove Key to be vigilant, to watch your gathering, wash your hands, to wear your masks, and also to be sure to watch those who are coming in and out of your space. The next 14 days will be critical for our Commonwealth. We want all of you to be safe, but once again, we want our people to have the basics around them. And especially for us, a family island member of Parliament, my people should have access to proper health care like the folks here or our residents here in the capital of New Providence. Mr. Speaker, we support the Bahamas Development Bank and this resolution. We look forward to the further growth and the expansion of the Bahamas Development Bank and its efforts to continue in the years to come of fostering and engendering Bahamian expansion and growth and development in businesses, especially small and medium-sized in nature. Today, I want to salute all of the 3,000 plus small businessmen and women in our country, and those who have gotten help through the ages of the Bahamas Development Bank, and those who have applied, and those who have not seen some success. I want you once again to reapply, and hopefully, through their good graces, they will consider your efforts and also put together something that is workable and something that can augment and make our society a better one as we move forward in the 21st century. Once again, on behalf of the great people of South, Central, and Mangrove Key Andros, I stand today to support this resolution, like my colleague, the honorable member for Exumas and Ragged Island would have stated earlier, and of course, our lady who speaks later. We want to support the Bahamas Development Bank. Long live the Bahamas Development Bank. And Mr. Speaker, today, long lives the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you very much, honorable member. As many. Chair recognizes the honorable member for Centerville. The chair recognizes the honorable member for Bamboo Town.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we will suspend until 3 p.m. for the luncheon break. So I do now move that the House suspends until 3 p.m.
Is there a seconder? Honorable members, it has been moved and seconded that the business of this House do suspend until the 3 p.m. hour. As many as are in favor will remain seated. Those who oppose will stand. The business of this House stands suspended until 3 p.m. this afternoon.